Eagle fans, it's EaglefanKarl. This is going to be my preview and prediction video for tomorrow afternoon's huge matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. And obviously, I don't have to tell you how important this game is. Those are the division standings. We're a game behind them. If we win, we'll be tied, but we would have the tiebreaker because we'll have split with them, and we would have a better division record. Having only lost one game in the division, they'll have lost 2 games in the division. So all that said, it's a huge game, very important, and I think this game sets up well for us based on where they are right now and based on the fact that we're starting to play some of our best football of the season. Now, granted, the last 2 weeks we beat clearly inferior opponents, but some of the things that I think we've seen from the team the last couple of weeks hopefully suggests what we can expect going forward. I think the offense has gelled a lot better. I think the offensive line is finally getting healthy. I think our secondary is getting a little more healthy, and they're starting to understand what they can do and how they can play with one another and play best off of one another. So I think all that together hopefully means that we're ready for a good stretch run, and that I think suggests that we have a better shot in this game than maybe some people think we do. Now, generally, this is the time I start going through my statistical analysis and all that kind of stuff. But in this game, once again, second division games are really hard in terms of going into stats. They're kind of meaningless in this game for that reason. The other reason they're meaningless is because these teams have changed since the first half of the season. Both these teams are very different than they were at the beginning of the season. Some of that's due to injury. Some of it's due to acquisitions. Case in point, Dallas as it relates to when they got Amari Cooper. The interesting fact that I heard about that this week is around the acquisition of Amari Cooper and how it affects Dallas on third downs. And that's because before Amari Cooper, the Cowboys were 29th in the league in third down completion percentage. Since they got Amari Cooper, in those weeks since, they are third in the league in converting third downs. Overall for the season, they're 17th. If you combine those two and look at the whole season, you look at the stats. But that just goes to show you just how much of a different team they are. As if you looked at the stats right now, it shows they're 17th, but they've been a lot better in that the last few weeks than they were for the first half of the season. So really some stats, like I said, sometimes can be misleading this late in the season for that reason. The other reason they can be misleading in a game like this, like I said, is because the fact that division opponents usually know one another very well. They know their tendencies, and sometimes that can affect the game more than statistical analysis does. All that said, there are some interesting ones to look at as it relates to Dallas in this game, and that has to do with the fact that they do have a solid defense, but I think their defense is made a lot better by the fact that they play complementary football on the offensive side of the ball. And what I mean by that is if you look at their defensive statistics, they are really solid across the board for the most part. They're 4th in overall defense in terms of yardage. They're 2nd as it relates to scoring. And they're 7th in passing defense and 4th in rushing defense. So, like I said, across the board, top 10 defenses in every area in that respect. I'll get into one aberration a little bit later in the video, but for the most part, pretty solid across the board. You compare that with their offensive statistics. Those are the offensive statistics, and like I said, the only one that really jumps out at you in terms of being good is their running offense. And that goes, though, to the complementary football part of it. They are a ball control team, and that then helps out their defense. So since they are able to run the ball, that keeps their defense off the field, and their defense isn't expected to do as much. Case in point is the game against the Saints, which of course everyone is, as Eagles fans, everyone's really upset about, and the fact that they beat the Saints and we got crushed by them. But really, what that game came down to was ball control. The time of possession, Dallas had the ball for nearly 37 minutes to the Saints' 23. And the offensive plays that they actually ran in the game was 66 plays to 49. And I had read or heard somewhere this past week that if you looked at the Saints for the season, they're averaging around 70 or 80 plays a game. So Dallas really shortened the game and really kept the ball out of Drew Brees' hands. And that obviously then significantly changes what you're able to do as an offense. If you don't have the ball and you're not presented as many opportunities, obviously then you're not going to be able to score as many points. You couple all that with the fact that both of these offensive lines were, heralded over the last couple seasons as two of the best offensive lines in football. Last year, our offensive line was widely regarded as the best in football. The year before that, Dallas's was widely regarded as the best in football. This year, both of them have sort of really taken a step back. Those are the sacks surrendered by both teams. The one obviously that jumps out is Dallas's. The fact that they are dead last in the league in sacks surrendered. The Eagles haven't done much better. Last week was, I think, the first week we didn't give up a sack in the game. So I think that is, once again, I think that's reflected in the fact that our offensive line is starting to play better football. But overall, both these teams have really struggled in pass protection, but both teams have done a great job in time of possession. Those are the time of possession numbers. And when you look at that, that tells me that this game is probably going to be a game of momentum and ball control. If one team's able to control the ball, have long drives, and have some success at the end of those drives by putting points on, keeping their defense off the field, not having to put their quarterback in a situation where they're going to have to be potentially getting sacked. And if one team gets out to a lead in this, I think it's going to be hard for whichever team is behind to really come back. So really look for that early on as to who's really in control of the game from that perspective. If it's a one-possession game where it's just sort of back and forth, that wouldn't worry me as much, even if the Eagles fell behind, unless it gets, of course, later in the game. But if it's in the first half and, the Eagles are down 3-0 or something like that, I wouldn't worry about it. But what I would worry about is if there's a couple possessions in a row where you've got one team, even if it's only one score, that's going to suggest more of a tenor of the way that game could potentially go. I think a good approach for this game, frankly, though, is sort of a ball control, try to run the ball, ask Carson to make some completions on third down, and that is sort of what we had been doing over the last couple of weeks against the Giants and then against Washington. So I really think that that's a good approach. It's been a recipe for success, and I think we can do that in this game as well. That's because of the one stat that I said was sort of an aberration with Dallas's defense, is the fact that their third down completion percentage is not that great in terms of holding teams from completing third downs against them. It's because they're 27th in the league on third down completion percentage, which means there's only 5 teams in the league that have a worse completion percentage on defense than Dallas does. So they're near the bottom of the league on third down completion percentage, which is sort of strange given all the other good statistics they have. But I think that is one area where they've shown some vulnerability. And if we can be completing some third downs against them and they're third down and manageables, then I think it's a situation where we can keep drives going. That then is going to keep more and put more pressure on their defense, and I think we can take advantage of that then. There are a couple other reasons why I really like the Eagles in this game. First of all is the fact that the Cowboys are coming off that big win against the Saints, and they've now had a week and a half to sit around and hear everybody talk about how great they are. Generally, that's not always a great thing to have in the NFL, and many times that's when teams have letdowns. And we haven't played a game this year where teams have had sort of a letdown game against us as Super Bowl defending champions. That's hard to do because teams generally are going to get up for you. But this is sort of a perfect scenario for us because it's the second time we played them, so they already played us once as defending champs. And they've had a great run of success since then, so they can start to feel a little bit better about themselves and be like, oh, we already beat this team. And I think that could potentially lend itself to a letdown for them. The other reason, though, I really like us in this game is just the fact that we generally play them better down there and the fact that division sweeps are usually pretty hard. Interesting fact as you look at it, the last time there was a sweep in this series was 2012, which was Andy Reid's last year when they beat us both times. Every year since then, it has been a split series every year. And the other interesting part about that is in all of those seasons since then, in all instances except for one, the sweep happened where they won up here and we won down there. The only exception to that was 2016, which was Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson's rookie year, so to speak, when we lost down there and then we won up here. But every other year, it's been flipped where the visiting team has had more success. So that's a pretty crazy stat when you really think about it, that over the last several years, the visiting team is almost always winning. So I think that also is a good sign for us as well, and I think that we can keep that going, especially, like I said, the way this game sets up. For those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Eagles in this game. I know a lot of Eagles fans are worried about this, think we've got no shot. I think a lot of the national prognosticators have probably written us off and thinks Dallas is this great team, but I think they've got some vulnerabilities that we can take advantage of. I think the Eagles win this game. It's going to be close. I think it's going to be low scoring. My prediction for a score is going to be Eagles 20, Dallas 16. I also think that it is a game, though, where maybe it could maybe we score late and make it look a little more comfortable than it is. But I don't see a blowout on either side. I think, like I said, it's low scoring, ball control kind of thing. I think both teams are going to be trying to do that. So that's going to mean probably a lower scoring game. As a result, that's my prediction. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I'll go ahead, obviously, and check in after the game. Until then, fly Eagles fly.